once you have that confidence, you will trust your voice. You will feel much more at ease with taking a stand or making a decision that maybe is not exactly aligned with what others tell you.
Welcome back, everybody. We're joined here today by Limor Bergman Gross. She is a former director of engineering with over 20 years of experience in that field, and is now a coach for engineering management. So Limor, welcome. We're so happy to have you here today.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Anthony. It's a pleasure being here today. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So if you'd like to just kind of go into a little bit about your background, where you were born, raised, how you got into engineering, that sort of thing. We'd love to hear about that.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Israel, and that's where I live today. And I wasn't born with the keyboard in my hand, I would tell you that. Actually, the first time I learned how to code was in high school. And it was nice. I wasn't like blown away, but it was nice. And when I was thinking about, so in Israel, we serve in the military and we have mandatory time we have to serve. And during the military, I started thinking about what I want to do, where do I want to go for college. And I decided to try out programming. So back then, I'm quite older than you too. So there was no internet. There wasn't like a way to learn like online. So I went to a course to learn programming, and I actually liked it. Said, okay, I'll try before I buy, right? Before I sign up for college, I'll try. I liked it. I said, okay, what can go wrong? It's nice, good job, make decent money. So that's kind of how I ended up starting in programming, and that's what I did. Basically, started coding, and at some point I realized that I wanted to go into leadership. But at the beginning, I was really wanted to learn, and I was passionate about learning new things and exploring. It was fun.
Awesome. So what was it about, or what sort of made the change in you that made you want to take on leadership responsibilities as well?
Yeah. What happened was actually interesting. So I remember that I was visiting a customer. I was working on back then with clients. So it was like professional services kind of work. And I was in North Carolina in a client visit, and I got a phone call from my manager calling from Israel, congratulating me for being promoted to a staff engineer. And at the first minute, I was happy, but I remember that after I hung up the phone and I started thinking about it, I said, I'm not sure I'm happy about it, because it was the staff engineer was when it was like a split in the career path between IC and manager. So the equivalent to staff engineer would be an engineering manager. And I started thinking, okay, actually, I do want to become a manager because I liked working with people. I liked also working with clients. I had like natural tendency to lead things. And I also, when I looked at other role models like staff and senior staff, I used to work back then in Sun Microsystems, a great company that I really miss. I didn't see myself there. I didn't see myself going very deep. I didn't see myself like continuing on that path. That's, I think, was the time that I realized that that's what I wanted. It took me several years to get there, though.
Once you started off down that path, did you quickly realize that you'd made the right choice, or did you have any concerns that maybe that wasn't quite what you wanted to do and second guess yourself?
When I started managing,
Yeah, right when you started on that management journey.
I second guessed myself a lot because I was terrified, to be honest with you. It was very intimidating. I actually started managing. So I applied to a manager position when I was 8 months pregnant with my second child. And I didn't even know if they'll accept me for that role. And I got it when I was still on maternity leave. And I got back, think about it, I got back from maternity leave a few months away from work. And I start managing a team, and it was a big team, and I was intimidated, very much so, and I didn't know what I was doing. So I knew that that was the right path for me, but I was really scared. It was really hard at the beginning. My manager was traveling a lot. He didn't really have time to mentor me, and I was looking for help. So, so I think like the first thing that I do with managers today is like I help them, and I think that either mentoring or coaching is really important when you start out on a new role, whether it's management or something else, because a lot of times you're there by yourself and there is no one to guide you.
Yeah, that's a very familiar story. And I've heard a bunch of times that, you need friction to experience growth. So like being kind of on your own, thrown in the deep end, handed a bunch of people who rely on you to give them guidance it is scary, but that's the way you do it, right? Like
Yeah,
just one problem at a time.
yeah.
Um, so actually, I want to go back just a little bit. You had talked about you want to try it before you buy it. Do you remember the project you decided to pick up? Like, what was the program you wrote?
Oh my God. I, I didn't write anything like really fancy. It was like I remember that we learned Pascal back then. Actually, it was a good first language, relatively easy. And I don't remember. It was so many years ago. I don't remember even what it was. But it wasn't something really big. But I enjoyed actually the logic, the logical thinking of a problem and how do you actually create an algorithm to solve a problem. I really enjoyed the thinking process that went along, not just the coding itself. And then trying to write a piece of code that actually does something, then it doesn't work, and then
Yep.
you try again. And
Yep.
I really enjoy the process.
Yeah, and one of the interesting, so I think we can all sort of speak to this because we're all engineers here, that one of the appeals of writing code is like the logical nature of it. But then when you move into management, it shifts and it's all emotional. And it's like a whole new set of skills you need to learn.
Yeah. That shift from
Yeah.
dealing with technical problems to people problems was one of the sort of most radical mindset shifts I've experienced in my career. It takes time to overcome it.
I know, yeah, it's not easy and it's not for everyone. I think one of the challenges that I've seen in many companies, I don't think it maybe less exists today, that many companies, the only path to move forward was go into a management position. And it's not for everyone because a lot of people, they don't want to deal with all the drama. They don't want to deal with all those things. And they just want to write code, or they want to go very deep, maybe going into architecture, or maybe trying to think strategic, but in a more technical manner, and less so about managing people. For me, I think because I think I have the skills, like I really get along with a lot of people. I know how to communicate effectively to different people and many, many very unique personalities that I had a chance to work with. Then I think it was the right move for me. But I have met people and I have coached people that moved into management and then realized that that wasn't really the best fit for them. And I think, like we talked about, that I tried before I buy, it's good to experiment. If you think about turning into a management role and you think that's the right path, maybe there are opportunities to lead something, maybe to lead a small team, to lead a project, to see how the interactions with people, influence and all that, giving feedback, how you feel about it. Yeah, it's hard at the beginning, but really, are you enjoying it? Do you feel like you're making an impact? Do you feel like that's utilizing your strength?
Right. And if it's not for you, it's not a bad thing. Like you've learned something about yourself, and there's a totally separate, like you mentioned earlier, there's a totally separate track for deep engineering, and you can like really get into the weeds and specialize in something, pretty complicated if you wanted to. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there are multiple ways you can go about it, right? You can go deep technically, you can go into product. I mean, there are so many options you can go to. You can go into sales route, maybe not to be an account executive, but being like the technical person that goes with the sales people. Like there are different roles that are technical, but are more aligned with sales. I mean, there's so many options.
yeah. So I want to shift gears a little bit here and ask, thinking back to your upbringing and the culture, like, was there any moments that helped solidify how you conduct yourself today, or any life experiences that have shaped how you show up in the world?
I don't know. I mean, there are so many experiences. I think that I learned really that you really have to put yourself out there and experience. And I'll tell you like one really good experience that I had. So I consider myself introverted, although I try to expand it all the time, right? By speaking on podcasts, by doing a lot of things. But I remember that when I worked as an engineer and I worked at Sun Microsystems, and there was an annual conference called Java One, and maybe it still exists under Oracle, and that was like the holy grail for Java developers. And I really wanted to go there. And in order to go there and be paid for the travel and all that, I had to be paid. I had to be accepted for speaking, like
Got it.
can be a session or a buff or something smaller. And I was so determined that I wanted to go that I actually applied for a talk, and I was accepted. And that was a huge step outside my comfort zone. Huge step. I was so intimidated by speaking in front of a crowd, and I was not that good either that time. But I think that experience really taught me that, yes, you may not be good at the beginning, but really doing something that is really getting you out of your comfort zone and doing it again and again, eventually you'll get there. So in order to grow, you really have to become uncomfortable and try different things. And no one is being born with the mic in their hand. Some people are more natural than others, but you can really build your skills.
Yeah, it seems like the theme of today's podcast is growth lives in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. So other than that speaking engagement, which I assume is probably a pretty cool achievement that you've had, if you think about the 20 years you've had in the industry, what are some other sort of key achievements that you've had that you're particularly proud of when you look back on them, and how did those help you to kind of steer yourself and your career?
I mean, I'm proud of the changes that I made despite challenges and what other people told me I should or shouldn't do. So I'll give you several examples. The first one I already gave you, that I applied to a manager position when I was pregnant. I was like 8 months pregnant, and I applied for a position, and I got it, and I started doing that when returning from maternity leave. And then the second thing was when my husband was offered a relocation in the US, and I had back then 4 kids already. So I had twins, and they're my third and fourth. And I said, yes, initially I was hesitant, but eventually I said, yeah, let's do it. I left my job and we moved, and I was with 4 very young children, and I just made a transition and find a job in the US. And then I moved different jobs, and we moved, within the US. And then the other big change that I made was starting working fully remote for DigitalOcean, and I started managing remote for the first time. And and then we moved back here, and said, okay, now I want to become something else. I don't want to continue that path. So making those changes, despite what people, some people may told me, oh, you shouldn't do that, you should do that. I kind of stick to what I believed was the right thing to do, and I just did it. I'm not saying it was
Yeah.
easy. I'm not saying it was always smooth, but just figuring out what I wanted and just doing it.
It sounds like trusting yourself is a big part of who you are,
Yeah.
that's really good. So if you can maybe also think about, I mean, you mentioned sort of briefly some of the challenges, and I'm sure that you faced many of them. Anthony and I probably have never seen, by virtue of the fact that you're a woman in a male-dominated industry. You talk about some of the challenges that you've experienced and how you've overcome them, and how you help other people now overcome those challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I must say, I never saw myself as a victim. I don't believe in the victim mentality. I always try to do whatever I can. But there were several cases where I felt that there were bias against me. And biases are not from kind of bad intentions. They just happen. So there was a bias against me at the beginning, against leadership, basically. Luckily, I got the opportunity to become a manager, like that role I told you about. But before that, I saw other people getting advanced and I wasn't, and it was very frustrating. When I moved to the US, it was hard getting my first job because I was an immigrant. English is not my first language. I had this weird visa that no one knew what to do with. So it was challenging to get my first kind of foot in the door as a woman, in this field. When I wanted to become a director, there was a bias against me, whether some people didn't think I should be promoted to a director, although they didn't know me very well. I remember one of the jobs didn't want to accept me. I found that, in hindsight, because they thought I'm not charismatic enough. But, so there are a lot of biases. I chose just to, see that as biases and try to find allies, to find people who believed in me. I think that it's important really to find people who believe in you. They are not necessarily women, by the way. The people who supported me the most in my career were actually men. And finding those people who know you, who appreciate you, and who can advocate for you. And what I do today when I work with women, I'm just a sounding board for them. I'm helping them to gain confidence in themselves, believe in their value, in what they bring, and to listen to their inner voice. Because a lot of times what happens is that those women, they hear different feedback from managers, a lot of time male managers that tell them what they are and what they are not. Well, they know the right things for them. So just finding their true, authentic voice, understanding their value, appreciating it. I give them the courage, basically.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And we're constantly surrounded by noise from the external world, and like giving yourself space to have your own thoughts is important. So,
Yeah.
you're saying listen to your inner voice. It's hard to listen to your inner voice when you're constantly bombarded by input from outside. So do you have a, like, I don't know if this is like a meditative practice or something like that, where you basically give yourself time to hear your own thoughts and then decide what you need to do next? Or do you just know, is it instinctive?
Usually you know what is the right thing to do, but a lot of times you don't trust yourself enough. And I think it goes a lot about confidence, about having confidence in yourself and trusting yourself that you know the best. One of my former managers told me, trust your intuition, trust your voice. But in order to get there, you really need to become confident in yourself. So do whatever makes you feel confident. I think there are multiple ways to do that. So first of all, always seek feedback. genuine feedback from people you trust, and work on improving yourself. Surround yourself with people who lift you up, with people who are supportive of you, who are positive, right? And stay away from maybe those energy vampires, those people that are negative. In any any company, or in your life, there are some people like that. They're not necessarily mean, just the way they are. Just keep them a little bit in a distance, and do things that makes you feel good. I mean, I am a strong believer in doing some kind of physical activity, because it really helps not just your body but also your mindset. Do something that makes you feel good, that can give you a sense of accomplishment. Find communities that you feel like you belong and support you. So it's all kind of about building your confidence. Once you have that confidence, you will trust your voice. You will feel much more at ease with taking a stand or making a decision that maybe is not exactly aligned with what others tell you.
Thanks for saying that. I think that's spot on. Yeah, and I see it like in myself, where, like you said, taking care of your own personal health, making sure you have good quality relationships, making small bets so that you can validate that you actually do know what it is that you're talking about. And then over time, you can make bigger bets and trust your intuition to make even bigger leaps. Right? Like that's how you can, I don't know, do great things, I guess.
Yeah.
So I want to just move on to, like, let's look into the future for you. What are some of the short and maybe long-term goals that you have coming up?
Yeah. So what I want to do, I want to create. So right now I'm focused on one-on-one coaching, and mostly women. I also work with men, but my passion is women in engineering leadership. And I also run several group programs. I want to do more group programs because I feel like for women, they really need to bond with each other. I mean, there is some power in a group that is not within a one-on-one. So I want to create more programs for women around confidence, about negotiation, persuasion. One of the things that I see, not just women, by the way, engineers struggle with, is persuasion and negotiation. That's really big. So I have several circles that are run around that, and I want to do more with that. And overall, like, see how I can increase my impact. So the way I think I want to do that is by having group programs, and also eventually in the future, some recorded content that will be also more accessible for the masses.
It's very cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. I'm a very strong believer in like diversity of all kinds in just about every industry that exists, and so being able to empower women, especially, to kind of find their voice and be more represented, especially in the higher tiers of engineering, is a really cool endeavor. And so, anything we can do to try and help you along that mission, we'll certainly try.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone, if you see a woman, a fellow engineer, just help, provide mentoring, support, even just kind word or boost of confidence goes a long way.
Is there any other call to action that you might make to us and our listeners on how we can help you accomplish your goals? And
Just follow me on LinkedIn. It's the handle is Limor Bergman, and feel free to DM me with any questions you have. I would love to hear from you.
all right, Anthony, anything else?
No, this was really great. I agree with all of that. I mean, you said it beautifully. And just to remind all the people listening, like, if you're afraid to reach out, growth lives in discomfort. So
Yeah.
just do it. It's a small leap.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Limor, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. It was a great conversation. We really appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Thank you so much, Jason and Anthony, for having me today.